safe and removed. You never get hung up. Never.
Jim was the first person to teach me that writing is a lineage. So when you got workshopped in Jim's class, he would bring in other poems by other famous poets that reminded him of your poetry. And he would photocopy things from published books and say, this reminds me of you, take this with you. And that really changed my relationship to writing, because it helped me understand that poems come from other poems and art comes from other art. And I hope I've given that to my students. So I feel like Jim's legacy lives on in my writing and in my teaching, now that I'm teaching where he taught. And because of that, I want to read his poem that's dedicated to his teacher. So he has a poem to Larry Levis, who taught him. And this is the last poem that I heard Jim read, and so I want to read that in honor of this idea of legacy and lineage. It's one of his longer poems. It's about 5 pages. Can you hear me? Are we okay? Great. Okay, this is called Levis. How deep do you want to go? There is a lake in the brain and a hole in the lake, and you can take your time thinking about death, if you think about it. Also, there are those who will not acquit, which is not a sadness, really, but a souvenir of sadness. A tear inside a thimble, inside a dimple of glass, a paperweight. And the whole has a name. Souvenir, from the Latin, come to mind or come to aid, and either way, you can take your time. Polishing the splintered desks in the empty schoolhouse, memory is custodian too. Memory, working nights with its cartoon lunch pail and its stained thermos and closet full of chemicals and brooms. And you know it's true. Memory lies routinely just to stay in practice and has no references and takes whatever work it can get. Levis is dead, and so I am writing this poem in the style of Levis, which is work, akin to performing the labors of Hercules as a musical. If you think about it, that's how puerile and insolent it is. And believe me, I think about it. It takes me deeper, and the only work I can get is shoveling shit in the king's stables, whistling. Who will come to aid, and how deep do you want to go? In all the stories of drownings, there are those who stand by the lake, weeping, wringing their hands and rending their clothes, and those who dive. You can take your time, and what comes to the surface of the mind is blind and silent. The fish nibble first at the lips and the eyes. Dead is an adjective. It modifies. It takes whatever work it can get, and all you can do is take your time. All you can do is sip your drink and listen to the tink of ice skating slowly to the bottom of the glass, where it melts into a little lake, which evaporates, which is the only work it can get. As souvenir, you can take the empty bottle home. A bottle is a hole you can fill. At birth, they pour you into your name, and when you die, out of boredom, having peeled away the label, they smash the bottle on the road. Glass slivers shiver in the starlight. And in the high beams of a truck driving all night the back way from, say, Riverside to Fresno, wherever, it's lousy work and takes time, but someone has to move the freight, which is blind and silent and beginning to smell a little funny, but I don't mind. It helps me remember how I sat once at a desk in a school with a poem praised by classmates for its safe, derivative diction and that smug self-derision that used to pass for style. It takes me deeper to the bottom of the page to raise the remains of his words. They're a souvenir. Now it's the only work they can get. You've written this poem. Time to move on.